quicker video. I want to start with a disclaimer. This is for entertainment purposes only. I hope it helps more spiritually. Oh, the light being in the frame. But it's merely a collection of ideas on these topics. It is not me saying you have to believe or interpret these biblical texts the same way. It is not even me saying that I believe or interpret these biblical texts in this way. Let's start off with talking about how less and less women are attending church, and more men are coming online to lament about the lack of submissive and pure, but that's a topic for another video, women. In the context of what the Bible says about what should take place in a marriage, mind you, most of these people that want submissive wives are not practicing Christians themselves. Some of them are practicing Muslims, which, once again, a discussion for another video. But it's interesting to me that they don't play the part. They seem to read the scripture that says, "Wives, submit unto your husbands," but they don't read the rest of it that calls upon husbands to love their wives. So, unfortunately, most men in these spaces, I just said that, I'm sorry. They acknowledge the submission wives are called to, but they stop at the part where it says that men are to love their wives and give themselves for them like Christ did for the church. You give your life to them. These same podcasters in red pill spaces are harping on about how women file for divorce 80% of the time, but they leave alone statistics like men leave their terminally ill wives 20% of the time, while wives leave their terminally ill husbands 2% of the time. Is leaving your terminally ill wife something that Christ would do for the church? We all know that's a no. It's like these people want their cake and they want to eat it too. And Christians were condemned by others because in a time where there were such hierarchies, where Aristotle was a renowned mind and, like the smartest people like him said things like silence is a woman's glory. When the Bible came onto the scene and started saying, husbands, give of your life to your wife like Christ did for the church. That was actually quite liberating in a way for certain people in certain situations where things were heavily hierarchical and very oppressive for women. And now we take those same texts and we're like oppressing women with it. Hello, folk dancer. How are you today? So, I'm not going to be spending any more time talking about the red pill podcasters. It's just interesting to me that this topic gets brought up so much. Um, do I need to speak slower? Is that what you're saying, Palaki? So let's get into what the most interesting part about this is that I want to add this too. Treating all human beings as equals. It wasn't just like treating your spouse right. Christianity was about treating all human beings as equal, and that's why so many people condemned it and they killed Christians because of it. I am named Lydia. Listen to me. I don't know why I'm talking like a robot. My name is Lydia. I don't really say that often. And there has always been a drive in many people to oppress others because we came from this place, this tribal place. There's a patriarchy. We are all surviving today, merely surviving when we could be thriving. And it is man made and sinful, according to Dr. Beth Allison Barr in her book, How the Subjugation of Women Became the Gospel Truth. Thought this was super interesting. A YouTuber, Manifest Stell, made a video about this when I started to write about submission. That day, she made a video where she brought up Dr. Barr. And I want to read a quote from her book. It says, "Patriarchy is created by people, not ordained by God. Before the fall, both Adam and Eve submitted to God's authority. After the fall, because of sin, women would now turn to their husbands first in place of God, and they would rule over them. In short, Adam's rebellion was claiming God's authority for himself, and Eve's rebellion was submitting to Adam in the place of God." Okay, that was all a quote except for "in short." I added that "in short." There was like 2 quotes of hers. Adam's rebellion was claiming God's authority for himself, and Eve's rebellion was submitting to Adam in the place of God. Dr. Barr writes about how when we are interpreting biblical texts, we need to keep in mind there's a difference between descriptive language and prescriptive language. And there's been a lot of the descriptive language just saying what was happening at the time used against women today, like when they're just describing what was happening at the time. The goal was always for people to work together in harmony. And when a man is loving his wife like Christ loved the church, he is submitting to her. They didn't say that, but women submit to their husbands and their husbands submit to them too. It goes both ways. I made a video about this years ago. I don't know if any of you watching it remember that video of mine, but I do believe that there's plenty of women out there that have never had a chance to have they don't have a man ever in their life that is sacrificing the way Christ was for the church. And if they did, they would absolutely be more submissive to him. But these men treat women like objects, literally objectifying women, and then they wonder why they're not submitting to them when they'll never ever live their life the way Christ did, let alone sacrifice and give of himself. Biblical texts were written, interpreted, prescribed, descriptive, or prescriptive by mostly men for most of time. And I think it's really nice to see Dr. Barr's work. Once again, I'm not saying I exactly agree with everything that she says. I'm from Kentucky. I was born here and I live here right now. I am part, I have a lot of different, I'm part Colombian, Swiss, English, Irish. So I might look, I might look like I'm from somewhere else. I don't know. A lot of people ask me where I'm from or what my ethnicity is. Well, that's nice. So submission goes both ways. You do unto your spouse like you do unto for no other person. Both ways. Gender roles are a distraction nowadays. Too often, people want to put things into a box. Being in a marriage is all about it's a synergistic relationship. It's making things work together. Life is hard. It's easier when you have a good partner. You can't just prescribe certain roles all the time for a lifetime to one or the other. And I wanted to put this out there because the men that do have good relationships with their wives aren't on the internet complaining about it. And I think that when you get into a really good, I'm sorry, I'm like losing my train of thought. When you get into the right place with the right person, the rest of your life will work out. You work through things together. Everything is better. And that's everybody's goal. That's why when we see an old couple, we all say, oh, that's so cute. That's so sweet. How long have they been together? But nobody wants to do the work. That sounds really negative. A lot of people don't wanna do the work. It isn't like it's portrayed in movies and the instant gratification, that way that men want women to act like wives and then men don't ever ask them to marry them. These same men just think it's like all men want to be married their whole lives because I've never seen these men that can't wait to get married, besides like very, very devout men, and they aren't online complaining about submissive women or not. It's it's odd. And there's a article that I'm going to read and make a video about where they have proven with brain scans that women do it too. Men and women are seeing women as literal objects. Through brain scans, they can prove this. When we see men, we see human beings. We use global processing. We use this part of our brain where we're taking in different information about a whole entire human being, because they're so much more complex than an object. But a different part of our brain lights up when we see women because we're objectified so much, and men and women are seeing women as literal objects. So when you have this idea of submission, this is the ultimate, they complain about how women aren't mature. They go for very young women, but then they don't understand like there is a natural order when you have a true partnership together. It's the submission goes back and forth. And it's great, it's divine. It has nothing to do with you're the woman, therefore you always do what I say. And life is so much more complicated than that. And I think I'm gonna get to making that video about the article that I was just talking about, the brain scans. We're looking at women as objects. We all need to stop it. And I think we should make a movement. It's that serious. We need to stop it. Misogyny and femicide. There's so much going on with women right now, and for men to not be trying to help some of that and instead say, "You're not being submissive enough," they need to go back and read their own Bibles. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. What did you think about Dr. Barr saying that patriarchy is rooted in sin? Actually, Manifest Style said that on her YouTube video. That was like a quote of hers. I don't want to take that from her. Patriarchy is rooted in sin. We were all supposed to treat each other equal. It's hurting all of us as the gap between wages and cost of living grows, between poor and wealthy grows. We're all barely. So if you can find a partner in life, it will. It's sad to me that at a time when we all need partners more than ever, people are kind of shying away from that. And I do believe strongly in 1999, marriage rates started going down. What did we all get around 1999? Or a lot of us got the internet within our home. And between adult media and social media. There was a lot of distortion taking place in male and female relationships since then. Oh, I'm sorry. Staber Gaming. I had somebody named Keith say a comment earlier. I kind of felt bad. If anybody's ever having a hard day, like, please comment on one of my most recent videos. If you just in my description, just I don't want anybody to go through something alone. I really feel for you. My husband, he doesn't have a very big family at all, and I have a large family. And then, sometimes that can feel bad when you don't have any of them directly in your life. Not that it's their fault, but it's tough on all of us. We're all at heightened stress since the panini a few years ago. You know what I'm talking about? In 2020, after 911, cancer rates skyrocketed. And that was because people were super stressed out. And I have no doubt, like, we're getting sicker, we're doing worse emotionally, and we need each other. We need to lean on each other now more than ever. And that's why they're trying to like divide us. Well, I really I don't know why this just came to me, but have you ever heard of The Alchemist? It's by Paul Coelho. That's a really good book. It talks about this boy that did some journey through the Middle East. This was like hundreds of years ago, and it talks about like the difference between destiny and fate. And I just always really liked that book, and it's a nice book to read every once in a few years. So this is at 11 minutes. I thought it would be about 12 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and stop. I'd really like to get a discussion going in the comments about what your interpretation of biblical submission is. I'm sorry, Staber. How to speak the truth when I'm trying to speak the truth. I'm facing so many problems. Well, honesty is the best policy, as cheesy as that sounds. Just be honest with yourself and try to process things. You have to go through it and process it and, you know, do what, excuse me, do what you can to be nice to people, of course, but if it's a matter of, talking to somebody, just be honest and kind and keep in mind like how you would want to be talked to or treated. And, it's all about your tone of voice. So many arguments, so many mishaps happen because of somebody's tone of voice when if you just I don't mean to say that like because of certain situations it doesn't matter, but okay, guys. Like I said, my email's in the description, and I hope everybody has a great day. I really appreciate the views, and I'd love to get your thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. I hope you all in the chat have a good day.